Well, good day, everybody. It's not the tracker update time. This is going to try and slip in the answers to questions that I got nearly a week ago. And there's been quite a bit going on. And then when there wasn't, I was trying to have a bit of a break, and we're traveling and stuff like that. So, and I realized last night I hadn't done it. So I've got them here, and I'm using this phone while the phone is supplying the internet for this broadcast as well. So I'll get this up and running and finished before we get to do the tracker in just a bit under an hour. So if you're not into the answers to the questions or what they're about, then you can go back and watch TV or watch the current affairs or read a book or whatever. So, and we'll be up at 8 o'clock. I'm not sure how long this will take. It says there's 20 comments, I think. So I've just got to make sure I've got all of the comments, all comments. Yep, got them all. And I haven't read these here for some time, so I'll see what they are. So is there somewhere on the web, this is from Kathleen, is there somewhere on the web page where you log the penalties for the individual legs? Look, but I could not find them. So there's only been a few penalties. Obviously Godspeed were one of those, for the outside assistance. That knocked them out of the leg. We had that penalty with Penjuic on the broken seal. And there's still a couple of things ongoing with two of the entrants which weren't wrapped up before they left. So they'll be, still considering some issues going into Auckland. What happens is whenever there's a penalty, and this is a really minor one, like a fine or something like that, we make a full declaration and we make a full assessment of that and make a public statement, which goes out on the press releases. So you'll see that come up there. And we don't have a special spot just to define what those penalties are, where you can go to. Maybe it's something we could do, but there's not many at the moment. There's only a couple. So it's in the press releases. Bridget, Bravo, Neptune, repairers. Yeah, they got fixed up and got going. That was a comment rather than a question. So that's cool. And they're having a good time. They got a SoundCloud up today, which is good. So you'll see that there if you want to hear the latest from on board. And anyway, next one, Marcel, can you check with Captain Coconut why he's left his anchor on the bow? He might still be in cruising mode. I got to say, yes, that's quite interesting, eh? Leaving the anchor on the bow for 7,000 miles down through the Atlantic. And I think it's still there, and that's his choice. But yeah, it's quite interesting. So Captain Coconut would be happy to pass comment on that. Certainly I made absolutely certain that they completely sealed up the chain in the horsepipe with duct tape and everything, because it wasn't done before, and maybe that was some of the water coming in the boat. But anyway, it's up to him. So yes, an interesting observation. The anchor was up on the bow all the way for 7,500 miles down through the Atlantic for some reason. And of course, explorers on their way back. I haven't looked at the tracker all afternoon, but we're hoping they get in the morning, tomorrow morning, so that they can get the repairs done and fit a new forestay, new furling gear. Jeremy's got a team. Jeremy Bagshaw, GGR Sailor's got a team of people waiting to jump on the boat and get it done and get out. So if they're lucky, they'll be out on Sunday if all goes well. Touch wood. Okay, Pete Neville, maybe this has been asked, but Maiden is the smallest of the leading pack of 4 yachts. If I'm not mistaken, my question is, how does she keep up with the more powerful Penjuic, etc.? Okay, so Penjuic and Translated and Spirit of Helsinki are absolutely displacement designs. You'll see the hull full-bodied like a whale. They still surf when there's a big, powerful waves and wind and everything. They can get up and go. It's just a powerful surf. And there's a lot of, boat under the water. There's a lot of wetted surface area there, a lot of weight and so on. Maiden is completely different design. It's designed as a flying, surfing boat. So it's very flat bottom. They try to keep it as light as they possibly can. So it's easier to get up on the plane. And when it's up, it can keep going. And that's exactly what you're seeing now. Maiden's doing really well. She's absolutely surfing. And it was designed originally for that. They didn't give a brass razoo for the IOR rating of the boat, which was quite bad in terms of it was a big rating for a short boat. But because it was a flying boat, get up and surf, they wanted to go for line honors. That's all they're after. And it's a pretty quick boat, I first saw it in 1986 when Bertie Reid, a South African, sailed it solo around the world under the name of Stabilo Boss. in the BOC challenge. He sailed it single-handed after it had was designed and built for the Whitbread. Did that, and he bought it. Did the BOC in 86, and then Tracy got it and did it as maiden in the next Whitbread. So it's quite a cool boat, and the girls are having fun sailing it and doing really well sailing it. So that's the big difference compared to the other three. Can you find out when Sterner found the leak? Well, I'll give you an update on that. I'll do it again tonight in the tracker, but they're still on the slip. They found some issues with their rudder and the rudder post and the bracket at the bottom. There's just a tiny fraction movement. They went over the side, had a look at it, and sort of thought, it's a bit, they're just unsure. So they've come back, pulled it all apart, ripped it all apart. They've got a laminating team there tomorrow, re-glassing everything, laminating it, put it all back together, and they're hoping to get away by Monday if all goes well. So we've been talking that at length. That's a quick, brief update on what it was about. But it was a case of better to be sure than sorry later, and they still had 7,000 miles to go. It was a very wise decision. They're out of the leg for leg 2, but they're looking forward to get going again. Okay, Randy, do the OGR boats trailer walker log? No, they're not required to have one, and I don't know whether anyone's got one at all. But they were certainly using walker trailing logs in the early Whitbread races. That was the most reliable form. There was Brooks and Gatehouse were up with their early forms of electronic logs and so on, but most of the boats would have absolutely carried a spare trailing log. But it's not a requirement for OGR under the notice of race. Here's a fun one. Any stories from the blind dates in Cape Town? Any romances sparked? Now, I'm not going to divulge too much on that other than to say that apparently only one may have turned into fruition. We discussed that quietly with the girls when they got there. It was a very funny story how it all evolved. It wasn't as complex and detailed as what it was made out to feel like in the reporting during leg 1. But apparently there may have been one date that actually took place. I don't know where it went, blah, 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 but maybe just one. But that's only hearsay, so don't quote me, and I hope I don't get into trouble for saying that. Anyway, but it was a lot of fun at the time for sure. Jerry, I enjoyed the reports, and I see on the Galliana team Facebook page, but how are they getting so much information from the crew? Clearly it must be allowed, but how are they doing it? Okay, well, Galliana are basically using their radio a lot. They've got an operator up in Finland with a big directional antenna who's an expert on HF radios and how to work that long-range antenna and how to work the skip for certain times of the day and night to get a good signal. And Galliana are one of the ones that are successfully managing to do HF radio sessions with their team, and they can say and do whatever they want within that. When they get weather reports, they only are given GMDSS, World Meteorological Organization, written reports for the high seas areas. And whilst it's all in Finnish, a lot of this has been pre-arranged with Tapio and his team. He did it in the GGR as well as the OGR now. In relation to the OGR, I think we had about 4 or 5 specific meetings to clarify exactly what they were doing, how they were doing it, and how it would be managed and controlled. They basically record all of their traffic so that if anyone has any dispute or problem with it, because it's all in Finnish and we don't know the natural one, we can request that call and get someone in Finnish to translate it if we needed to. But I can assure you Tapio absolutely works within the rules. He spent a lot of time setting all this up to get the best information he can for his campaign. So yes, they do get information off. Also, they listen to the SoundClouds as well and then retype that out as text. So they're listening to all the material that we produce and putting it into writing for all their Finnish followers and things like that. So that's how it works. But you can't use satellites for any communication with family and friends and teams and things like that. Hans, is there a difference between both the Swan 65, but both Swan 65s, both Ketch? Evrika had a previous very famous owner, but translated 9 is definitively faster in both legs, different rating and IRC as well. Yeah, well, I mean, you picked it in one. You got different types of crew. Evrika has got family and friends, all right? Literally, everyone on the boat is from a family and friends environment. A translated is specifically chosen crew to see what's going on. And So that's a big difference. And then the preparation of the boats is part of the course. The idea there is that Translated have completely rebuilt the boat. It was Claire Francis's boat, ADC Akatak, in the original Whitbread race, and they've basically rebuilt it. And when they rebuilt it, they've done it to spec, but they didn't put any wasted stuff in because they're in flyer class and they can actually therefore not have to have their covered doors and so on, like the full production class ones. Whereas Avrika's got to carry all the production boat gear and so on. And I think Avrika did a production boat IRC certificate. I'm not sure about that. I can't remember. But Translated, I'm not sure as well. But it depends on the number of sails they carry and the size of the sails and things like that varies the rating. So that they are quite different in that aspect. Margaret, which one of these yachts has completed a circumnavigation before? Well, Explorer's done 2 circumnavigations before. And Penduic will have done circumnavigations. Translated 9 has. I'd have to think of that and go through the whole thing. Neptune has. The Esprit de Keep has. Who else is there? It's off the top of my head. Any of the previous Whitbread boats have, and I'm not sure about the other production boats. Okay. Okay. Did anyone open their packet of mobile phones on leg 1? Well, we don't know. There was a broken seal on Penduic, but nothing else that I know of. So that's Mike Phillips, what happened about Maiden's mainsail when she was in Cape Town? As I recall, there's a warranty issue and so on. Yeah, basically there was a few people, and this is a classic example of how we try to stick with the notice of race. It very clearly says in the notice of race that you cannot take sails off the boat. And the idea of that is to make people and the entrants figure that this is like having a non-stop race around the world for the sails, and they should have built their sails accordingly. To go all the way. And in reality, it didn't sink into a lot of sailors. And so we ended up with a situation where many of the boats had what I call potentially major sail repairs, where the sailmakers could come on board and try and repair it, but they couldn't bring their big machines and they couldn't bring their presses and all this sort of stuff. So there was quite a few entrants cracking up and saying, and I said to them, well, look, that's the rules, you should have thought about that and built tougher sails, or not pushed your boat as hard, or whatever. And that was the name of the game. But it became obvious that some of the boats were going to be in trouble if they couldn't do it. So we've allowed, in Cape Town, we opened it up and said, okay, as long as it's not putting new sail on, which is a penalty, you can do your sail repairs in the sail loft and sort it all out. And that covered Maiden, but it disadvantaged some other sailors. And I won't name the sailors, but it was unfortunate because like one boat carries 6 spinnakers. Okay, and that was part of their restricted sail plan. They decided to go with spinnakers because they knew other people would blow up their spinnakers. And if they had 6, they'll have an advantage when the others are blowing up. And they took a hit on their IRC rating by doing that, but that's what they decided to do. And now that we've let the sail repairs happen in Cape Town, when they didn't need any sail repairs, they've still got all their 6 spinnakers, but others who blew their spinnakers, one spinnaker have 10 square meters of material and completely rebuilt and all this sort of stuff. They should have been disadvantaged, but it's not. So, we try to balance that, and it was very challenging at the time, but it's a classic example of how we got to stick to the notice of race, and we try to do that in every instant. But we did allow it because some of the entrants say it was unsafe to continue, and that was their problem. But I had to manage that, so it was a once only. It won't happen in Cape. It won't happen anywhere else in the course. That's it. If you put a new sail on, you wear a time penalty and things like that. So what's the issue with Neptune steering? It was some wobble in the shaft and bits and pieces, and they've checked it out, and now they've continued on, and they're quite happy, and they didn't have any outside assistance other than the mooring, being alongside, and that's we'll announce that we don't want to do it while they're at sea. So the issues associated with that will be dealt with when they're in actual Auckland at the end of the leg. But they did particularly well to get going, and they're underway. So that's good. Dave Smith, several boats were idle for years and required refits to enter the race. Generally speaking, what does that entail from a technical perspective, and does it make sense for financial perspective versus buying a better used boat? And so what required to get made and sailing again is appreciated. Boy, what for all that you and the OGR gang do Oh, thanks for everything that you do to get the race. So we're hooked on the GGR and OGR. Okay. It is a balancing act. What do you do? Buy a wreck and completely rebuild it, or do you buy a good boat and just service it? And the budgets can go up and down. If you're going to do a race like this or an adventure like this, you need to do lots of lists and you need to develop your own budgets and then make your own decisions on what is the best way to go. When we bought Explorer, it was a very good boat that we bought extremely well. And we didn't have to do a major refit, but nonetheless, putting extra gear on and so on has cost quite a bit. We'll reveal the budgets at the end of the race because I think it's very interesting to see how it goes. But generally speaking, I think we prepped the boat for a bit over €300,000 ready to the race, and then there's expenses on the way, like 4 winch handles from leg 1, and a new reefing gear and new sail and everything for leg 2. But anyway, we'll put all the numbers on the table, and then you can see some boats are spending more than others because they're doing it different ways. But the whole thing varies. And if you're a sailor and you're into this stuff, you'll know how to develop your list and then work out your budgets and see. And generally speaking, I would say it's better value to buy a reasonably good boat and not have to do a major rebuild. 2 problems with a major rebuild. And I was a boat builder, we used to build boats. Major rebuild, you never know how far back you got to go before you start coming forward. And it's always very expensive when you come forward. If you've got basically a pretty good boat, you can control the budget straight away because you can say, okay, we've got to fit new gear, which is easy to do, and we don't have to go backwards too far. So I would always tend to hang on the idea of buying a slightly better boat, avoid the huge structural refits and all that sort of stuff, which can cost a lot and lose control of. And, you can't find workers and that, they get you by the short and curlies and you got to pay them to do this, that, and the other. But, we always, don't get me wrong, I like paying good workers and stuff, but a big refit can be a nightmare. So, yeah, I always tend to think get a better boat and service it. John, did anyone cross the line early in Cape Town for leg 2? No one did. What happened? Penduit was trying to push Translated up over the line, but they held their ground and no one broke early. So that was pretty good. Can you please explain the difference in the classes, Adventure, Flyer, and Saula? Okay, so Adventure class and Saula class are both production boats. They've got to be existing production boats designed before 1988. And as a benchmark, we use the equivalent length of a Nauta Swan. So if you've got a Swan 53, the displacement of that, the sail area, the lengths and beam and so on. And so if you've got another 53-footer like a Grand Soleil 53, which is very similar, as long as the parameters, sail area, displacement, length, all this sort of stuff are similar within 20% of the equivalent Nauta Swan as a benchmark, then it can get an approval to do the to sail in that adventure class. Now, adventure class is for boats from about 47 feet up to 55 feet, and it's named after Adventure, the Nicholson 55 that was entered by the Defence Department of the UK in the first Whitbread race. The Saula class is same conditions, but it's a bigger boat, and it goes from just over 55 feet up to 65 feet. So Spirit of Helsinki fits in there, Swan 65 and the Swan 57, all those, they're within that realm. Now, Flyer class is any boat which has entered a previous Whitbread race or the first 3 Whitbreads. So 73, 77 and 81. As long as they're there, they've done the race before in the first 3 editions, then it's in this race. And that's where you've got your Flyer class now. For 27, for the 2027 OGR, we're putting another one in. You can actually, if it's done the 85 Whitbread, then that'll be allowed in as well. So Spirit of Helsinki could actually then enter Flyer class for the 27 edition if she wanted to do it. That's really about it. Looks like we've done them. So some quick answers for some questions. Sorry it took so long to get to them, and we will come back to that. We'll come back to that. Again, probably after this weekend. I think there'll be another quick Q&A if you want to join that. We're still trying to get the ones up on YouTube to let our YouTube people ask some questions, and then I can answer them. But that's where we're at the moment. I'll just check. I can see comments here. See if anyone's got a question. Thanks, John. Thanks, Don. Don, thank you very much for the explanation. Godspeed. I'll give you the update on that on the tracker. Oh no, we're waiting for that. We'll be issuing Godspeed's update in a press release tomorrow. Fascinating. So the Galliano radio traffic, yep. Because the radio situation, you can do anything you want on a radio, right? If you can talk to your people there, it's okay. So yeah, that's part of the fun. I've also become hooked on the OGR and GGR. Good on you. Yep, we're just about to announce some stuff for GGR in a press release tomorrow as well. So keep an eye out for that. Yeah, Maiden's doing good. All right, that's it. So I'll leave and I'll see you in about half an hour for the tracker update. See